everybody, this is video 2. And in Unit 2, we're really working on identifying your interests and abilities. So kind of building on what we started in Unit 1, particularly with your wandering map, and moving towards thinking about the future. So what the Brooks chapter for this unit talks about is imagining your possible lives and starting to sketch out what that would look like. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. Okay, so what the Brooks chapter is talking about, as I said, is identifying possible lives. I want to start with some of the ideas that are really the context for even talking about something like possible lives, okay? So there's a few caveats then. The first is that most career paths are not linear, right? I included that graphic that's on our announcements page, and it's the first slide in this presentation that shows that sort of twisty, turny path, right? Not everybody's career path is quite that twisty, but a lot of our paths are like that. Or at the very minimum, they're not linear. So what that means is, I think it's important to start from the premise that it's not going to be a straight shot, right? Get a degree, get a career, a job in that degree, get a career in that degree. Often there's a lot of other directions we go before we settle on what we want to do long term. As Brooks points out, it is simply a sort of statistical fact that most people hold multiple kinds of jobs across their lifetimes. And lots of people, in fact, hold multiple careers. So not just different sorts of jobs within the same field, but starting in one field and going to a totally different field, right? Those are not, unusual. Those are actually a really common thing. So bear that in mind, again, as you do your own planning. So in other words, don't think of career planning as finding one thing and sticking with it forever, okay? I think that has often been held up as sort of the model of what you're supposed to do, and it's just not feasible, and it's not necessarily even the best way to approach how you're going to plan your life. So, as I said, this unit, we're really kind of tracing out what those multiple paths in careers and also in other kinds of life planning might look like for you, so that you can start to make some choices about which of those possible lives you want to pursue in general, like maybe you only want to pursue one of them, or maybe you want to pursue a few of them, and then figuring out how to build those all in to your plans for the future. Okay, so when Brooks talks about mapping possible lives, which is sort of the exercise you'll be working on in this unit, this includes any sort of future career that you might be imagining, and as well any other kind of life plans. I do think it's important to think about all those things, right? So you don't want to try to disaggregate your job from all the other things you want to do with your life, right? If you want to build a family, if you want to live in a certain place, if you have sort of other kinds of hobbies or activities that are important to you, think about those as part of your kind of life planning. So careers and the rest of life can be sort of folded into this process. One of the things that Brooks suggests as sort of a first step, and I think it's really useful, just to give you a sense of all the options, is to just do a sort of a Google search of careers in blank, whatever you think your primary career goal is, right? If you want to be in some kind of healthcare field, for example, look up careers in health, right? Most of us, the first thing we think about is being a doctor or a nurse. There are a ton of different careers in healthcare that you can pursue, okay? So that'll give you a sense that it's not even just picking like a category or a subject. There's a lot of different pathways you can take within that area, within that field. What you're going to be doing in this unit, as I said, is creating this possible lives map. It's sort of like the other piece to what you did last week. So the wandering map that you did last week is really about looking back, reflecting on what you've already done, the experiences you've had, the skills you've accrued, etc. This possible lives map that you're doing this week is really about looking forward, right? So given what you know about yourself, given all the things you've done, places you've been, etc., now starting to look to where you want to take all that, okay? So what is hopeful to come out of this process, the outcomes of this mapping process, are, again, first just kind of getting a vision of the different routes you might take, but also identifying themes and priorities, right? Which things rise to the top as important to you in terms of where you want your life to go. The other thing that will come out of this, I think, probably for many, is multiplicity. That is, again, you're not going to find one path, you're probably going to find a few possible lives that seem compelling or interesting to you. And that's not a problem. That's something that you should learn about yourself, and that is something you can plan into your future. Okay, if you do find that you have multiple possible lives that you find kind of through this process, I think there's a few ways you can manage that, right? So one is to just prioritize them, right? You could rank, if you come up with 3 directions that you're interested in going in your life, you could rank them. Which one seems like the highest priority or the most compelling or the most important to you? You may find that they fall out sort of 1, 2, 3. They may not. You may think, I really am equally interested in all 3 of these things, right? And then you can think about other ways to manage that. One is to think about doing them simultaneously, right? Are these things where one could be, what you do as your job or for your career, and another is something you do as sort of your hobby, right? Or something you do on the side. You can also do them in sequence. Like I said, lots of people have multiple careers across their lifetimes, so it doesn't mean you need to do the same career for the entire time, right? So you could do one kind of career for one part of your life and another kind of career for another part of your life. Or another way to think about that multiplicity is, how can I combine those things? If I'm equally interested in 2 or 3 fields or subjects, is there some kind of career path that brings all those things together? And there may very well be. Or can I make it a career path? There's room for you to also be the one to forge a new path that brings together different things that you're interested in. So again, don't be afraid of multiplicity. If you find multiple possible lives come up through this exercise, that is really valuable information to know about yourself, and then something to build into what you decide to do next. Okay, so specifically what you're going to be doing for this assignment 2, is it comes directly from this chapter, right? Chapter 2. And as I said in the instructions that are in D2L, it's going to be based on the Possible Lives chapter, and particularly on the last 6 or 7 pages, pages 136 to 142. So what I need you to do to be able to do this assignment is first read that chapter, do that Possible Lives map, right? So it's kind of similar to the Wandering map. But for this assignment, you're not going to turn in the Possible Lives map, right? For assignment 1, I asked you to turn in a scan or a photo of your Wandering map and a write-up. For this one, I didn't ask you to do that. For this one, I'm asking you to follow the instructions in those last pages of the chapter, pages 136 to 142. And what you'll see when you look at that is there's a couple of steps to the exercise that you're going to do. The first is Brooks gives you 3 different categories of sort of what people tend to fall into as they're doing this kind of possible lives mapping. The first is the probability planner, the second is the possibility planner, and the third is the intention seeker. And there's an explanation of what all those mean in that part of the chapter. So when you get to that part of the chapter, you're going to read that, you're going to figure out which one you are, right? So you're going to choose one of those categories that you think best reflects where you're at with your career planning. And then what I want you to do is to write up a 1-page response to the questions that correspond to your chosen category. In that part of the chapter, Brooks traces out, what the 3 categories are, and then poses questions for you to answer for each of those categories, right? Where it's talking about, like, here's what I think my possible life would look like, right? So that's the assignment, is to figure out what category you fall into and then write up your answers to the questions for that category. So hopefully this will be, another step on our process, moving from the Wandering map of thinking about where we've been, what we already know, what we already are good at, and now starting to look into the future and really imagine what might be the path or the paths that we'll take. So I hope you enjoy the exercise, and I'll certainly look forward to reading them. Okay, we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.